Hi. Today's session is new for me, and that is that I have a guest. And I want to, before I get started, Melanie says hi. Hi, Melanie.
Hi, Mike.
Melanie McNutt. I'm very pleased to have Melanie here. I asked her to join me because I found that what Melanie does is at once really a necessity in an art organization like mine, and really in any IT organization. And so as a necessity, I think, Melanie has been extremely successful in how she does her work, and I thought it'd be really interesting to share. And I'd like to ask Melanie a few questions and have her share her thoughts on those kind of things. So Melanie, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. I'm glad to have you. So, first, as I mentioned, is that I'd like to sort of ask you about how you develop your regimen, and what areas do you say, this is what I really want to concentrate on, and how do you decide? Let's say, how do you decide what's next?
Absolutely. So when I first started as a technology trainer, I really wanted to kind of dig into the spirit behind a quote from Maya Angelou. It says, people won't remember what you said. People won't remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And so when I approach every training, I always want to make sure that people are feeling welcome, comfortable, that they're feeling engaged, that the overwhelming feeling is not boredom. Especially in technology training, you have to keep it lively and more interactive. And I think also making them feel empowered. Make sure they know after they leave, if they don't remember everything they did, where are the resources? How do they get help? I think also making them feel competent, because if you give them more opportunities to practice, then they feel more competent. They approach that technology with a feeling of competence, and then they will bring that to their work every day. So that's kind of the overall spirit of how I approach training. And then when I go to develop training, I'm really looking at what are those actions that they need to perform. I start every section of my guide or every section of our training with the action that they need to do or what they need to remember. So if it's processing applicants through our hiring system, what are the steps involved in that? And each thing is a learning objective, an actual verb, so that when they're done with that section, they know exactly how to do that function. And a lot of times I'll be meeting with stakeholders and I'll say, okay, I want to design this training for you, but I need to very clearly understand, who will I be training? What are those actions that they need to do? What do they need access to? And then also understanding the business practices, because you have to marry not only the technology, but you have to marry that with the business practice behind that. And that's where it really is important in technology training, because technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's so important to support that business process.
Yeah, it's interesting, that quote from Maya Angelou about how you make them feel. I wonder if you've seen this. I recognize that the IT community at large is not known for being a pool of feeling people. They tend to be sort of very formula driven, and I hate to propagate a stereotype to which I have often fought against. But so I'll just sort of generalize and acknowledge that it is a stereotype that, deserved or not, is there. You I think approach it from a very different point of view, and maybe that leads to what I've seen. A really profound success. Something I think it needs to happen in the world of IT, and that is the getting your head around the people who consume your services brains instead of your own, in terms of what service delivery looks like. I think there's also an element of sort of servant leadership, that model. And I see you, sort of getting out of your own ego and getting to other people's world and say, how are these people best going to receive the information that I'm delivering for their own good? Is that something you recognize?
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that compliment. And that's what I strive to do, is try to, see things with a fresh set of eyes from their perspective. Where are they coming from? What are their experiences? What's their day-to-day like? Because we use language that can be confusing for folks. When certain terminology in the business can mean different things, depending on the trade that you're in. So it's challenging to put yourself in their seat and to see how they might approach things step by step, because everyone has a different way of approaching things. And yes, I definitely agree with that.
That's great. So what have you seen in terms of trends? Now, you've been doing this for a while. Have you seen a change in what people's needs look like and how the IT world has changed? What have you seen in terms of trend changes?
Yes. What I see a lot is micro-learning. So folks don't have time or opportunity to go to a 2-hour training or a 3-day training. They really want 5 minutes of learning, and then they want to apply those skills. It's a very agile approach to learning, and it really fits with our busy day, because I think right now we're at a point where we have more access to online training than we ever have in the history of humanity. But what I see are folks are not taking advantage of that. They don't have a habit of working that into their work week. So they really need someone to touch base with them, to help them, to guide them, even just to pull them into a room and say, for this lunch hour, we're going to sit down and you're going to learn something new and you're going to apply it. You're going to practice it so it sticks. So I see micro-learning as definitely one of those trends. I think the other trend is e-learning, of course. So folks, we're using technology to deliver training, to track training, to make sure that it's getting done. We're losing some of that personal element, though, in that. So it's real important, I think, to continue to assess that learning is happening and to touch base and stay in tune with what folks need for their environment.
Yeah, I've seen that thing as well, and I think with the wealth of sort of self-service stuff that's available out there, I know myself, lately, whenever I want to do something around the house, I go to YouTube. And how do I do this? YouTube. It used to be buy a book. Not anymore. Now someone's got a video to show you how to do it.
Absolutely. And it is very helpful. It's putting the training where you need it, when you need it, and just enough. And if you don't get the right video, you look for another one and that has the right content.
Have you noticed a trend in BYOB, sort of that, to bring up self-service again, people are more personally savvy nowadays than they were in the past, maybe? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I definitely think that from an IT perspective, we're no longer like the leading authorities in all areas.
Yeah.
We have our customer base that is driving some of our decisions because they're out there testing things out. And leading the way in areas that maybe we're not able to focus on because we want to continue service and improve our strategy. So I think they bring up new and exciting things that we can test out. I also think there is a disconnect we have, especially when you have a broad range of ages, skills. We've got a lot of folks maybe close to retirement versus student team members. So there can be a disconnect between those in my trainings that are really savvy and quick, and then those that have a lot of questions and want to know maybe a little more in depth how to use the technology. So it's a balancing act to keep them all engaged and keep them all on track.
Okay. Now, I've never seen you apply the rules when you start a training session. Do you lay down the law when you get in there saying, "Hey, folks, one thing I need from you is pay attention"? How do you get them to stay off their phones, or do you even have to try?
No, that is definitely a challenge. First, to get them in the room is a challenge, but once they're there, to keep them off their devices. What I like to do is I'll put a lot of question and answer, and I'll also put a lot of practice into the training. So,
Okay.
for example, I do training on how to review applicants and hire them for a job. So I will give everyone in the class a task because adult learners are task oriented, they're problem solvers. So I'll give them a task or a problem, and I'll tell them I'm going to read out the question, the problem that you have to solve, and I won't tell you who I'm going to call on for the answer until everyone has a chance to look it up.
That'll get their attention.
Yeah, it gets their attention, gets everyone engaged in finding the answer, because otherwise you get folks that are quick, and they get the answer and they call it out, and then everyone else is left behind. So give everyone time to find the answer, and then I call on someone at random, and that keeps them from either dozing off or checking their email.
As you know, that's one of my peeves. The whole bring your technology thing and let you run your own meeting and distract you from the rest of it. It's something I have a hard time handling myself.
Right. It's very difficult to be present.
Yes, that's it. Being present.
Yep.
All right. So, final question: what do you see is on the horizon? What's next in sort of trends?
That's a really good question. I think we're going to continue to see e-learning, micro-learning. I think there's a lot of stuff on virtual reality and incorporating that into the training environment,
Yes.
Ways to deliver simulations. But I do think that we're going to need to find fresh ways to engage like teams and team problem solving. Getting people together will be the challenge and the trend, because I think there will be a back to basics. You really need to know how, not only do you need to know what you need to do, but you need to know how to do that with others in your environment. So I think there'll be more, as we see in some like blended learning, where you do some learning outside of class and then you come to a training and you interact and you apply those skills. So.
Oh, yeah, almost like how they in the classroom what they call it flipping,
Yes.
where you sort of be pre-learning and then you sort of review learning in the class kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, do you see gamification being part of that sort of future?
I do, and there's a lot of great technologies to assist with that. I think we want to keep things fun and lighthearted and go back to that, how do you make the learner feel? And winning games makes everyone feel good. So.
Winning games make you feel good. Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, Melanie, I really want to thank you. This has been great. And everyone out there, thank you. And as usual, I invite your feedback. Reach out at the site. You'll see this at michaeldewisha.com or my email. And Melanie can also be reached. I can forward emails to Melanie. Again, Melanie, thank you very much. I appreciate this. And thank you. And for now, goodbye.